Did women ruin the MCU? Yes, and they did it on purpose. This is by JesterBell. Now, get ready for apologetics. And JesterBell, I'm not going to allow your apologetics. Sorry. This is just the way it is.
A couple of weeks ago, a game named The Ghosts of Yotai was announced. It had a female lead, and that went over about as well as you would expect it would. As an example of some of the tweets that were made, Ghost of Tsushima's sequel stars a Japanese woman samurai warrior because of course it does. They can't help themselves until every franchise that was built on masculinity is replaced by women.
He's right, except for they can't help themselves. I mean, that's their goal. Eddie here, or Indy, or whatever you want to call him, guys don't want to deal with the fact that's done on purpose, that women just don't like men.
Ghost of Yotai is hopefully a smaller spin-off game, but if this is the true sequel and this is the new main character over Jin Seika, that. So sick of the forced girl boss narrative, man. There were many similar comments like this made about the game, despite the fact that nothing is known about the game yet. They don't know if the character is going to be
Are the comments made by men or women? Jester Bell? Because if you're going to try with these apologetics, you should be showing women complaining about this. They don't.
good or bad, it's merely a reaction to the character being a female lead. What I believe the cause of this reaction is for a good span of time, a lot of female characters were being pushed very hard in media, and a lot of them were bad. And the reaction, if you
No, 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 no. They weren't pushing female characters. They were getting rid of male characters.
didn't like them was to basically call names and said that you just didn't like them because they were female characters, even though there were plenty of reasons to dislike these female heroines, which I have covered on this channel as a person.
The only real reason is that they were done to disrespect the male audience. No other reasons are necessary.
Who wants there to be more female heroines. I can admit that these new modern day ones weren't done very well. But while many people argue for
They were done perfectly for their purpose. They were made purposely antagonistic and disrespectful to the male characters. So they worked, right? So this is apologetics number 101 here.
years that it was never about the female characters and instead just the writing, it seems that some people have let the pendulum swing back too far so that now they have become every
Oh, no, don't start this horse shit. You're trying to suggest that women were downplayed in the past. They weren't.
thing that they were accused of being, so now they just don't like female characters in general. Says one tweet, "At this point, it's simple for me. I'm so burnt out with female lead characters in any media. Even if the game could be excellent, I don't give a crap anymore." That's the conditioning that they have, I guess, worked over on me, that I don't care. I don't want to see another woman-led franchise. I will get excited when I see something that looks like it belonged in 2008, not 2024. I'm pretty sure Lara Croft came out before then, but
When he says 2008, before the bad times came in, that's what he means. I don't know why you're being pedantic here. And what he's really saying is these guys can't even voice what's going on right. He said he's tired of being bashed as a man. That's all this is.
moving forward. This is something that if you are a person following a lot of nerdy content that I've seen grow up over the past several years and I've covered on this channel before, the idea of the pendulum swinging way too back the other way so that it doesn't just
No,
become
no, no. Men never disrespected female characters. Don't even bother.
about a handful of badly done female heroines, but it just becomes backlash against female heroes in general. I first saw it when it came to the movie Prey, which
Badly done female characters are never disrespected because they're female.
which actually turned out to be decent. I saw it earlier this year with Furiosa, and it's just gradually becoming a lot more commonplace to attack things over it having female characters than over the writing itself. This is also what happens with movies like Madam Web, for example, which I've also covered, where even though it made no attempt to attack the audience that would bash it or make things about a gender war, there were still people out there who tried to make it about that and tried to make false claims.
Bullshit. Bullshit. It's taking something Marvel and ruining it on purpose. Men have complete right to say what they say about this show.
Claims about how the movie was advertising itself and what actresses said. And a lot of that has washed over to accusations that women themselves are the ones who ruin these pieces of media behind the scenes, as there's been.
Okay, so these guys are finally waking up. Then JesterBell. It's slow, but the mask is off. Men see the hostility that your gender has for our gender for no good reason.
Been a lot of disappointment in geeky media lately. It happened when Jennifer Lee stepped down from Disney from being the CEO of their animated division to just going back to the Frozen sequels. And I am all for her stepping down because I think she did a terrible job as CEO. However, there were definitely.
Really, she just stepped down? She wasn't canned? By the way, Frozen was a way of dissing that original story. The Ice Queen was supposed to be the bad guy, and the good guy, the heroine of Frozen, the actual original story, was a young girl. So why didn't Disney go with that? Because the young girl was out to rescue the boy who she loved. And that's why they changed that story.
People out there who made it about her being a woman for why she did a bad job. Says one comment, these women have not just wrecked corporate America, but proven that too often men were the great talent in the past that entertained and innovated the movies billions of people have loved.
100% true. Right. And here's the thing, JesterBell. The reason why is that women do not have to perform. If men don't perform, they're tossed aside. If women don't perform, they can become a housewife. They can leech off a man. And they're not ridiculed. Right? There is no woman up for women. And that's why all these positions are done on a lark.
And as a follow-up to that comment, of course we were. Same in gaming. Everybody is wondering why gaming sucks nowadays, why AAA is so buggy and trash. It's because all the women now in the industry. It seems that now it's commonplace after all of the tensions between gender and pushing female characters and women in positions of leadership.
Well, it's not really tensions between genders. Men worship women, lady. Men go, why do you think Feige, that you're going to mention later, he's a male feminist? He's destroying his own brand to pander to women. No. It's female animosity to men. 100%. It's one way.
Leadership that is now commonplace to just blame them for being women. A tweet went viral recently with 56,000 likes.
Not blame them for being women. Recognizing that women are hostile to men. Guys are waking up.
Which was supposed to be in response to someone who was talking about how men need to create safe spaces for themselves and each other and pursue therapy instead of perpetuating the very behavior system that they handicapped in the first place.
Well, that's very insulting, isn't it? Get therapy. I bet that's what they would love to have said in the civil rights movement. You black men are getting hanged. You should get therapy. Right?
The response tweet for that was, men had Star Wars, woman invaded. Men had sci-fi, woman invaded. Men had video games, woman invaded. Men had D&D, woman invaded. Men had comics, woman invaded. Men had men's-only clubs, woman invaded. The only thing men have anymore is either solidarity or you fuss at us for it.
Yeah, solidarity. Right. So this guy is calling it out. I mean, it's so obvious now. Some guys finally are voicing it. There are still majority of men will deny this. They're in complete denial. about your gender's hatred, unearned hatred of our gender, my gender. Most men are still in deep denial over this, but some of them are finally coming out and just saying so. Okay.
Now, I'm not defending the original comment that was made, talking about men's health. I'm not taking a side on that. And I am going to
You are taking a side. This is what your apologetic video is all about.
be fair to the guy who made the viral tweet that he did come back and walk back on it a little bit. However, I'm just using
Of course, he walked back on it. He said it perfectly, but what it is, he still wants to pander to the women, and he knows he can't be brutally honest. That's why he walked back on it.
these as examples of the kind of talk that's gone around, that these were amazing franchises that men loved, and then women came in and wrecked them all, and
Yeah,
the women in positions of leadership came in and wrecked them
yeah.
all. Especially, I've heard that a lot about the MCU and Star Wars. Women ruins the MCU.
Well, they did because they weren't interested in the franchises other than they saw it as a vehicle to disrespect men. So they were right. They are right.
Women ruined Star Wars, but did we? Did women ruin the MCU?
Yeah, purposely so. Yeah.
Well, that's why I'm making this video, because I wanted to finally
Offer apologetics. I would prefer that you just not do it at all rather than give this insulting response video.
admit I did. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
Go fuck yourself.
Seriously, though, I think maybe the start of this video should be debunking the idea that women ruin everything they touch in creativity, and
Really? So again, it's apologetics, right? Right.
that they ruin things that men like inherently, like we have an inherent desire to do that. Because
Yeah, thank you for admitting that. You're trying to defeat that, but let me show you something. One of my important videos. Men gave women the pill, women showed no gratitude. Can I ask you something, JesterBell? The two men who created the pill for women to relieve them of the worry about becoming pregnant when they didn't want to. Do you know their names? Pincus and Gerasi. Have you ever heard of them? No. So there was no gratitude there, was there? There's no Pincus and Gerasi day that women celebrate that say we gained sexual freedom thanks to these guys. What happened as soon as they got the pill, that's when they burnt their bras and started saying, now we're breaking out of the patriarchy and banging guys when we feel like it. So this attitude women have towards men is far, far before this era.
just because there's a bad apple out there like Jennifer Lee or Kathleen
Holy shit. Bad apples. Bad apples. If it was just a case of bad apples, one, it wouldn't happen to the incredible amount that it does and has. And two, you would see women who are the complete opposite. Remember, all the guys you show complaining are guys. If this was something that was gender neutral, that women weren't involved, there'd be an equal amount of women's voices getting completely angry over this. They don't exist, including you.
Kennedy, that's done a very bad job, does not mean
Well, no, Kennedy didn't do a bad job. She purposely insulted the male fans. Don't pretend this is by accident or mere incompetence. Kennedy competently insulted the male fans.
that there weren't plenty of women behind the scenes who worked on these projects in the past. The truth is, Hollywood has always been a
Yeah, but Kennedy, she was there at the very beginning, so there was no excuse. There's no excuse. She was buddying up to the top guy, got in there, and then as soon as she got in charge, she went on the rampage. So her desire to harm men is innate and it's hidden until she can actually has the power to show it. The mask is off.
A bit of a boys' club. I mean, very infamously,
Shut up, boys club horse shit. If men didn't create it, it wouldn't get created.
it was not a great place for women to work because of the Harvey Weinsteins and the
No,
Pete
no, shut up. Harvey Weinstein gave a lot of women their career. And that's why a lot of these women ended up bragging him up. Weinstein didn't prevent, careers. If anything, he gave careers to women who weren't deserving. And if all your complaint is this guy got some sex out of it, well, he hasn't, there's nothing to say bad about him.
Diddy's of the world, though, he seemed like he was
And what does Diddy have to do with Weinstein? Nothing.
just going after everyone. But anyway, it was very infamous of being a very abusive industry and a very abusive industry for women where it's hard for them to work in it. However, that
Well, abusive how? They weren't just given everything on a red carpet, or they engaged in a casting couch. That's women's problem. That's women's problem. If you don't have what it takes, if you don't have the acting talent and you want to jump to the casting couch, that's entirely on you.
That does not mean that there haven't always been women working in prominent positions on shows that people love. You've got Martha Lucas, who edited the original Star Wars films and was also responsible for editing 2 Scorsese films. Gail Ann Hurd, who refined James Cameron's Terminator script and helped him get it made. Marilyn Monroe, who was one of the first female producers. The female executive of Fox.
This is all nice and dandy, but these women weren't there to prevent Kathleen Kennedy from destroying Star Wars, were they? Because they're in on it. At best, they're indifferent.
Who put her career on the line to get X-Men the Animated Series made, which was probably the most instrumental thing in pushing the popularity of that series to date. And she also was instrumental in making sure that female characters like Storm and Rogue
This is the equivalent of I have a black friend.
got a push in the series, despite the idea that not as many female action characters sell. Then you've got Mary Harron.
Really? Not many female action characters sell. Why not? Aren't you girls all interested in this? Wouldn't they sell it as well as the boys because so many girls are into this? So you just admit it, this is a boys thing.
Who directed American Psycho, the female directors who did many successful comedies and rom-coms throughout the 90s and early 2000s. Star Trek, the original series, had many female writers like DC Fontana working on the scripts for many of their episodes. One Redditor estimates that 42% of season 3 of the original series was either written or co-written by women. Galen Suzman, who literally saved Toy Story 2 after someone tried to delete it from all of Pixar's servers.
What does this got to do with anything? This doesn't make her pro-man. All they're saying is this woman didn't want someone stealing from them. She involved, she's making money off this. Okay, then she's incentivized to protect, the production.
And these are just a handful of people that I can pick out from different areas of Hollywood that have.
But none of them are pro-man. None of them have ever stood up to these women who are destroying the industry, the franchises that men love.
Contributed to these very, very successful movies. In short, even though with the way Hollywood has been in the past, there have always been talented female creators working on the media we.
If there has, then there's no point of going on about how Hollywood was in the past. Obviously, the women could make it. They just had to struggle like men, and that's your issue. That's what it means when you say Hollywood needs, corporate, ladder climbing is toxic to women. In other words, women have to do what men do, and they can't. The men out compete them.
We enjoy. There's nothing about your gender that says that you can't be a good creator or that you can't take a genuine interest in things like sci-fi. So we
Really? Like I say, you just admit it. Uh, the action female characters didn't sell well. So women in general aren't interested.
can get that out of the way. It's never that just because women are working on a project that means it's going to be bad or out to attack its male.
You've never had to deal with HR. Just because women don't automatically attack a man doesn't mean it can't happen. It doesn't mean the intent isn't there or the potential isn't there. How many times has some guy, like there was a Twitch streamer called Rectful who took his own life because he was falsely accused by a liar, of course. And why'd she do it? Because she just felt like it. So it's been proven, Jester Bell, women's innate hatred of men has been proven.
Male fan base whatsoever. That also isn't to say that there aren't plenty of women out there who enjoy these properties. And this is a very broad topic, but I'm just going to primarily be using the MCU as an example just to whittle it down a little bit. But these days, in order to really gatekeep the MCU as it's gone downhill, much and much more strong emphasis on the MCU being a boys brand has been put on it, and saying
It is a boys' brand. You admitted it. The superhero, action heroes didn't sell well. It is a boys' brand. You don't have us guys going to what is it, romance novels and saying, that's a guy's brand, We've got to invade. We've got to claim that it's equal. Why is it so important to you to push this lie that there's so many girls and women interested in stuff they aren't interested in?
that the problem is that the MCU has been turned into a girls' brand. And
No, they got it wrong. See, these guys don't even know how to voice it correctly. It's a boys' brand that has been destroyed. When they say turned into a girls' brand, they mean it's been destroyed. If it was a girls' brand, they would be doing fine. Girls would flock to it, and these productions wouldn't fail, right? The She-Hulk failed. It was canceled. If women were into it, why didn't it remain, going? Jester Bell?
in fact, that's also what they say about Star Wars. But I think that this emphasis on exactly which gender the franchise is for has been a little bit exaggerated. If you look at the box office,
Well, it has been exaggerated. Well, when I was a boy reading all the Marvel comics, there were no girls reading them.
demographics for these films, a film like Avengers Endgame had an opening weekend of 57% of a male audience, and that is definitely skewing male. However,
That's right. But you know something? You girls are attracted to status. So if the brand gains enough status, which Marvel did, that's when you join. That's all that's going on here.
that means a whopping 43% of the audience that got Avengers Endgame to its billion-dollar opening were women, contributing about $400 million to the box office. Similarly, a film like Star Wars The Force Awakens had a 58% opening weekend from male audiences, and that
The Force Awakens, eh? Yeah, that was the beginning of that downfall.
That means 42% of its box office was contributed by women as well. Compare that to a film like Barbie that had a 66% opening for women and almost
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, of course. Right. And but the thing is, if the guys went, it's because they went with their girlfriends.
had a 70% female opening on its Friday. In other words, even though things like Marvel and Star Wars were ultimately more male skewing, they actually did a pretty good job at appealing to both genders. And plenty
No, it didn't. No, they didn't. These tanked. These tanked because neither gender was interested. Guys weren't interested in being insulted, and it never interested the girls in the first place.
of female fans out there helped contribute to the success of these films. And I can speak from my own experience as a girl growing up loving these characters and just loving action and sci-fi and all of that. I could always talk to my female friends about Marvel because all of my female friends were enjoying Marvel and would always know the next trailer or the next thing coming out. Now, as time passed,
Yeah, Marvel became acceptable. But again, when I was a boy and you could just walk up and buy comics off the shelf, there were no girls there. The guys were the one who were interested.
can't do that anymore. All my female friends say that they've given up even paying attention to it because it's gotten so bad. Because good stories do appeal to everyone, regardless if they technically said for boys.
But your friends have given up on it, but they're not insulted. They're not leaving these clips saying, "Look how we're being attacked."
Or for girls, and bad stories don't appeal to anyone. It was really about the characters that brought us on board. But of course, there
Yeah, but this isn't about bad stories, is it? This is about being spit on for the way you were born. So these girls dump it when the story is not bad, but the guys, even the story was good, I wouldn't put up with some propaganda, some sexist propaganda made against me. Something that's the reason that you girls aren't leaving because it's not aimed at you.
is a source for all this complaining about female characters in these movies and it being turned into a girls' brand. So
Complaining is it complaining or just pointing out that it's an attack on us? So we get attacked for being the way we're born, the sex we're born, and we're just complaining. No, fuck you.
So let's explore exactly what that is. Now, what is very factual about what Marvel has been doing is they have been definitely trying to promote a lot of female characters in their movies. I think Kevin Feige.
No. They weren't promoting female characters. They were embarrassing male characters. They were stealing their thunder. That's what the female Thor was about. He was to steal his thunder. Thor is Thor's name, not his title. And she says, I'm the real Thor now. It was so blatantly obvious. So they introduced that Jane Foster character in Marvel Universe, which they did. That's what went on there. That's a giant neon sign saying, we hate your guts as men, and here's your turd sandwich. Eat it.
He said at one point that he wanted to see 50% split between male and female characters in the MCU.
Now look at these characters got worse with time. Black Widow, introduced at the beginning, was part of the team. What's this? The Wasp here showed male hostility when she came out. And of course, this piece of garbage was a total insult. She humiliated the Thor character. That's what her purpose was. And the race swapping is really disgusting, too.
MCU. Now, that is
Thor, by the way, the Valkyries, he knew them. The home of the gods is a small universe. There's only so many of them. Yet when they introduced that character, They got Thor to say, "Oh, I've heard of you," as if he wasn't, involved with them, right?
Ridiculous. Why? Because to me, that kind of mandate is going to stunt creativity, where it's not about if you're creating good characters, it's just about getting a certain ratio. That is a terrible idea.
But that's their whole purpose, is to destroy the franchise. That's the purpose. So it has nothing to do with making good characters bad characters. At least you're a woman, so I can understand why you would be in denial. It's when my gender, when I hear guys in denial, makes me want to vomit.
And I think that it has showed in a lot of their content that there are a lot of female characters being pushed in media. For example, the Loki TV show really ended up prominently featuring the character called Sylvie, even getting the big moment at the end of the first season.
Well, the thing is, what made Marvel so good is that there was a giant history. The Marvel heroes have been done. It really doesn't have any space in that universe to add new characters anyway. No, as you mentioned before, the original female characters, the ones that have been around for decades, have a hard enough time gaining popularity because it's a guy's thing. So any introduction of anything new is a waste of time. All right.
Moon Knight introduced a character called Layla, who also becomes a superhero a little bit randomly at the end, and it's kind of awkwardly placed in the show. Thor.
Yeah, it's just men giving women free shit. That's all that's going on here. It's men pandering to women. The male feminists are giving stuff to women and saying, here, it's a bribe. It's what men do. Men bribe women into their lives. What you're seeing here is a form of prostitution.
Love and Thunder had Jane Foster Thor in it. We can see everywhere that there was definitely a strong push for female characters. A lot of people.
A strong push to take away from male characters. Jane Foster, she didn't just show up and say, I'm a hero. She showed up and said, I'm better than you, Thor. You're nothing.
Point to the fact of the big girl power moment in the end of Avengers Endgame feeling very inorganic and very in your face, and being the start of the downfall of the MCU to getting to.
Yeah, the MCU made its money already. It banked so much they could now destroy it. That was the beginning. And it's all purposeful. They shoehorned that at the end so that people would actually go to that film. And then it was all downhill, and it's all on purpose. It's not incompetence.
To a point where it was just about relentlessly promoting these female characters and tearing down all the male characters as a result. Now, once
There you go. Not as a result. They tear down the male characters, and they used the female characters to do it. Cart before the horse.
again, it is factual that Marvel really wanted to push a lot more female characters in prominent roles, and in my opinion, it did lead to some ridiculous decision making down the line. There also was a lot of talk during this time that.
No, not ridiculous decision making, proper decision making for their goal, which was to destroy the franchise. She-Hulk is a perfect example.
The original characters of the series, many of which who happened to be male, were talked down to in order to promote the new female characters more. Once again,
well, that's not really promoting the female characters, just disrespecting the male characters.
it is factual that they did want to promote more female characters, and I can agree that some of the way they went about this led to some pretty silly story decisions. Like Kevin Feige admitting the reason they didn't want Doctor Strange in WandaVision when he was originally supposed to be is they didn't want a man being the one to mentor the female character or bring.
There you go. So this isn't about promoting a female character. This is about sidelining a male character. That's what it is. So this is all male hostility. So please stop trying to push it as a positive, that they're trying to do something for women.
bring her back from her dark side or anything like that. So this obviously created a lot of problems. And listen, the problem with a lot of this stuff is that it did feel very inorganic and shoehorned. Like that scene in the end of Avengers Endgame. Like everybody at that point in the context of the scene is just fighting as hard as they can to stop the entire universe from being disintegrated. So why at this point in the story would it just happen to be all the female characters who join up while the male characters are idle? They're all desperate.
Well, it's pretty obvious. I just told you 2 or 3 or 4 times already. You know why. So why are you playing dumb?
Desperately fighting from the universe to get destroyed. Or the ending of Moon Knight, which once again, I actually kind of like the character of Layla up to this point, but to have her just stop in the middle of a battlefield so a little girl can praise her for being an Egyptian superhero was very in your face. This sort of thing is like Marvel stopping their stories and saying, hey, look, we did this.
Yeah, the male feminists are part of Marvel. They're pandering. It's male nature, JesterBell. Men have no self-regard or self-respect. We're like empty vessels once we hit puberty. In spite of the massive creative power men tend to show, they're willing to throw all of it away for this one compulsion.
Give us praise. We did it. We did it. And that's why it actually didn't help these female characters, because a lot of these female characters were just put in these shows.
Again, it's not about promoting the female characters. So it didn't matter if it helped it. That wasn't their goal. That wasn't their purpose.
Potentially through mandate were not built up properly and were very in your face. And once again, people will go back to Avengers Endgame as the point of when it started and when the MCU subsequently went downhill. However, did you know that Marvel was actually starting to push female characters more and harder before that moment in Avengers Endgame? It happened in Black Panther with a very, very strong.
Yeah, they tried their best. But in the end, it's not going to work because the female characters you're talking about there, they have no history. You know, the Black Widow has some history. You know, Rogue has history for them to use. So they're not going to introduce any female characters that people are going to love in this kind of universe.
Female supporting cast, and no one complained about it. Likely because it was done well. The female characters were well integrated into the story. They felt organic, so of course no one would complain about it. I mean, it arguably happened with other female characters being promoted and pushed in the MCU in phase 3.
In other words, they didn't disrespect the male characters. That's what you mean by integrated.
Like Valkyrie and Thor Ragnarok. Once again, even though I don't really care
That look at the smug look on this woman's face, this disgusting subhuman. Right.
for Valkyrie, she didn't feel inorganic to the story. She was there for a reason to help them.
No, 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 no. She was there to spit on the male character. Don't even try and apologize for that scumbag.
Off the planet. What's happened in the MCU post Phase 3 would be the equivalent if Valkyrie stopped the story from it to say, hey, I'm a new female character, you better like me. The problem with this kind of thing and how it went forward with female characters is the way it was done, not the idea of merely having more female.
The Valkyrie pushed the idea that Thor being male took all the accolades that he didn't deserve. That's your idea of organic?
Characters, but the way it was done. With that, we might want to talk about Marvel becoming a girls' brand. And I've had people write to me.
Isn't it a girls' brand? If it was a girls' brand, it would appeal to girls. These productions wouldn't tank. You just see a shift from popularity from male to female audience, and they'd make just as much money. So you were just flat out wrong at best or lying at worst.
Me and tell them that the best way they can explain it to themselves of why they don't like Marvel anymore is because it's a girls' brand. And that annoys me because I know what girls' brands look like, and I can tell you that ain't Marvel, not even with all their
There you go. Thank you for admitting that. So it's not a girls' brand, exactly. Doesn't appeal to girls because it was meant to destroy it for the boys.
Pushing of female characters. If you want to see a girls' brand, think Barbie, for example. That's not really what Marvel is most of the time. Like, I can compare that to Star Wars shows like Ahsoka, for example. That was called a girls' brand. And I'm like, why? Because it has a mostly female cast. It's a dour, somber, serious show with a ridiculous slow pace, which is what I would attribute
Yeah, exactly. It's not a girl's brand. It's not a boy's brand either. That's the whole point of it. It's to make something that's not appealing to guys.
to it not being very good. Not the fact that it just has a mostly female cast. Just putting a mostly female cast in a show or movie does not make it inherently girly. But even if a property like a TV show or a movie does have a more girly skew, that doesn't mean that men can't and won't enjoy it. For example, Wonder Woman, I think, is a movie that comes from a more feminine perspective, yet
Really? It was an action film. It was an action film that appealed to guys. I don't think it was girly at all. Here, let me just stop something for a minute. Bring it up. See this Wonder Woman action scene? This incredibly appealing to us guys. I'd watch it over and over again because it's what superheroes are actually about. People are in trouble. She shows up, she defeats the bad guys, and she just has incredible abilities. It's incredible. I won't play any of it because they'll just get copyright. But this is what appeals to guys. And guys will flood to see this more than girls will. There might be some interest, like the girls say, yeah, a female's there. I'll go and see it for that reason. But the action, that's for us guys. And I bet if I look down into the comments, there'll be nothing but praise by men. Nothing but praise. I'll come back here to see how Snyder Cut does better. Wonder Woman, faster than a speeding bullet. Also woman, can't catch her swords while falling. I don't know what that's about. I guess I shouldn't have looked too much in the comment section. But anyway, that's my point, lady.
men really enjoyed that movie. Hunger Games, actually, going to high school, teenage boys like those books just the same as teenage girls like those books.
Those are books, though. The movies blew. They were boring as shit.
Anyway, Marvel, I do not think that the problem is it's a girls' brand, because that would give into the idea, if the core problem is that it's a girls' brand, that it makes it sound like Marvel is still as good as ever. It's still well-written movies. It's just that the problem is that they're trying to make them appeal to girls and not men. But
Exactly. You're getting to it.
that's not what's happening. These are terribly written movies. They don't appeal to anyone, regardless of what their tone is trying to be. First of all, the
They're not terribly written. It's not that's not the reason. It's because they're written to hate on men.
shows that come out, still most of their leads are men, and most of them are still going with the action show or action movie tone. I didn't really think
Of course, the leads are still men because they need the men to bash. If they actually got rid of all the men and just had women there, then the hatred couldn't be shown. Right?
that in too many projects the tone was really changed, except the humor got a lot worse. But let's look at a show like She-Hulk, and a lot of people
The humor got worse because the humor wasn't there to make us laugh. It was there to take the seriousness out of the show. It was there to damage the show. To say, oh, you guys, you really take this seriously? Well, you can't. Everything's just a joke.
look at this thing as trying to be a Marvel show that's more appealing to women. But the problem with She-Hulk is not that it's more appealing to women. The problem is that it actually isn't appealing to women, because absolutely no one wants to watch a show about a narcissist who only cares about her next hookup or promotion. Just because the idea maybe behind She-Hulk was this will be more appealing to women, that does not mean that it will be. And to me, it speaks a little less towards people behind the scenes who want to specifically make things to appeal to women, but rather perhaps the narcissism of the people.
No. They were out there to to make sure that men were being insulted. Come on. If you can't come to this obvious conclusion, you are part of the problem.
working on these shows, and what we would see a lot with many of these people not even reading the source material. And this is factual for both the men and women working behind the scenes, because that's a big deal as people are trying to accuse it of just being women coming in and destroying these properties. Is there's a lot of men behind these scenes who work on these films. And
Exactly. Men sell themselves out and other men. They sell other men out first to pander to women. Men worship women. Women have contempt for men. That's all you have to do. Once you realize that, once you're able to admit that to yourself, you understand. Male feminists, they come out when guys realize, hey, I'm getting deselected. What do I do? I don't have the money to bribe you girls. So how do I deal with prostitution? That's what's going on there.
and destroyed them, like Taika Waititi, who ruined Thor because he didn't appreciate the character, or Michael Waldron, who worked on Doctor Strange 2. And since we're talking about Hollywood mostly being a male-dominated industry up to this point, you might want to notice that if there were bad women working on these projects, they were probably hired by men. But
Thank you. Thank you for admitting that. That's right. Men pander to the women. So men are willing to destroy everything they love to have a woman in their lives. That's what it is. Male nature is very self-destructive. It is. And that's how these women got in charge. And then they let them run rampant, and then everything goes to shit. This is the one time I can agree with you and say men are involved. We are involved in our own destruction.
while I agree that the shoehorning of female characters was part of the problem with Phase 4 and that it didn't work out and that they didn't actually produce any memorable popular female characters, because let me tell you, rather than doing 50% female cast, 50% male, one female character that really works with people and people want to see more of is far more valuable than 100 forgettable ones. But I do believe that there's a lot of people who are zeroing in on the problem with female characters and the way that they were promoted in Marvel movies, ignoring that there were a lot of other circumstances to explain why Marvel went sour. It wasn't just
No,
because
no, no, no. No, there's only one. The women involved have contempt for the men. And they want to show their hostility to men. And the men were willing to let that happen. I suppose there's two then. The men were involved. That's it. Jeez. I don't know how much further. Yeah, it's hard to swallow your apologetics. Let's get past that. Deadlines. No, no, this is all apologetics. All apologetics. What you're talking about now has nothing to do with what the young fellas you showed. You showed guys saying how women got in there and ruined it because they saw that that's exactly what happened. Okay, so getting past that.
just course correct right then. They would have 4 other shows in the movies already in the
Ah, shit.
So you may have noticed.
Ah, fuck. Sorry, guys. I'm gonna put this in anyway. I don't give a shit.
a couple of weeks ago. A game named The Ghosts of Yotai was announced.
I'm not starting all this all over again. Get back here.
Could tell him no on it. She is by far the most ruined character, the most destroyed character in all the MCU, turned into a crazy witch while she used to be a hero and then killed off. Or, for example,
Yeah, she was used to like destroy the male characters. That's right. Okay. Yeah.
Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. Despite being called Ant-Man and the Wasp, Hope Van Dyne, the Wasp, barely appears in the film and barely does anything because the writers very clearly, and I think they said this, didn't know what to do with her. To say something like
They knew what to do with her. She could have been a hero. She could have shrunk down and did things. Like Wonder Woman stopping the bullets. That's an excuse. They introduced a new girl who was younger and she was better than the rest. They didn't know how to make the Wasp the bad guy. So they introduced a new girl to take her place, and then they didn't know what to do with the Wasp. right? Because it's not about making her into a hero. It's about taking the spotlight away from the male hero, Ant-Man.
The MCU is destroyed because they were just pushing more female characters or trying to make it a more of a girl-friendly thing is just not encompassing everything that went wrong. I can
It's not that those weren't even in existence. It's 100% to spit in the male fans' faces. That's it. It's not just the number one reason, it's the only reason.
agree that the way they tried to promote female characters during this time wasn't good, but it is not solely the core problem of everything going on. Even female characters that were supposed to be promoted face the consequences of this studio in absolute chaos.
Sorry, guys, I didn't pre-watch this, so I don't know when to stop it. But this woman's just repeating the same old bullshit.
And meanwhile, some people, like Nia DaCosta, for example, who directed The Marvels, she is a director with experience, but she was kind of thrown under the bus and made to blame for this project when it was really actually made by the executives at Marvel and not her. With all this said, the MCU in its current form isn't really appealing to anyone right now, regardless of gender, when it used to be. But the reason I made this video is because I've been talking for a while about the pendulum swing too far back, that all the
Which is a lie.
antagonism between studios and fans over female characters and all of the bad female characters are going to make the pendulum swing back too far. And in my opinion, that's already happened with comments about the ghost of Yotai or the comments about women intentionally coming in to ruin all of men's hobbies. And while I think a lot of the criticism
Well, they are. It's pretty obvious. That's why you're focused on the MCU. How do you explain Star Trek and Doctor Who?
about how female characters have been lately are justified, and I've done several videos of them, there's some that just get downright ridiculous. Like, I've heard that Laura shooting X-24 as Logan dies was some sort of statement about girl power. I thought it made perfect sense. Logan was always meant to die at the end of the film. Laura and X-24 are extensions of his character, X-24 representing the monster side of Logan, and Laura.
I agree with this. This was a very pro-male movie because he was pro-father. In the end, a young girl shows love for a man. So it's very pro-male. I agree with that.
Laura representing the side of him that has the ability to change. At the end of the movie, it proves that Logan was able to change Laura and set her on a better path than he faced. So that
Exactly. Again, that's very pro-male movie. It shows that the father has a positive effect on his children, including his daughters.
was a victory for him. It was representative of having Laura be the one shoot X-24 that his better side won out. And exactly what did they want to change about this? Did they want Logan to somehow have the adamantium bullet gun and shoot X-24 as he was dying while Laura just sits there and screams or something? You know, finagling a story and mangling it just to make sure that the female character is always the hero or something like that is bad storytelling, but it's also going to be bad storytelling if you finagle the story to make.
True, but if that happened, which I actually believe you, that probably someone said that, this is the first time I'm hearing about it. So that really represents a very tiny demographic. Whereas women destroying men's hobbies for shits and giggles is all over the place. Okay, enough of these apologetics. JesterBell, I mean, what an embarrassing video you made. I hope you don't take it down, though. Guys need to see these kind of apologetics and see them for what they are. Anyway, goodbye.